Today we meet father and son John and Patrick Woods and hear about their journey to build Linwoods Health Foods. In this fascinating story, we delve into John's 60-year history with the business, taking it from a small shop to the major employer and manufacturer of health foods that it is today. We talk about how you pass on the baton in the family business, and John gives his own son the advice he would have given himself for starting, running and growing a successful business. I hope you enjoy. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome Patrick and John from Linwoods Natural Foods today to talk to us about the history of their business and to find out what the future is going to look like too. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Good to be here, Steve. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
So let's start with John. John, would you mind just sharing, and by your own words, an abridged version of the history of how Linwoods has grown from the small family shop quite a few years ago? That'd be great to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose from I was a very small child, I was accused of asking why too often. My dad died when I was very young, and my uncle, who was endlessly patient and also our mentor, would be frustrated sometimes, and he said at one stage, "John, do you know any other word, only why?" So that you can put that with the idea that I was blessed with a lot of positive belief in myself, and that I was blessed with good health in the first 40 years of my life, and also that my dad had started a small business, and it was business morning, noon and night as I grew up. And then when he died, I was only 10, and it was even more serious business because my mother was out of her depth with running a small farm, running a general merchant business, a retail shop in the country, and a number of staff members. So that meant that it was business morning, noon and night in my lifetime growing up. Left school at 14, worked in the shop, and I'm there some 65 or 70 years later. I don't know, whatever it is. But so it was never my intention to do the academic world because of dyslexia, and that was a deterrent for languages, and therefore I was ill at ease in school and considered myself well received working in the shop selling petrol and groceries and all. But no business, no matter what it is, lasts forever, and transition was coming. So we, as a small family rural business, decided we'd do the various things like supplying wider general merchant business from the water pipelines were being led through the country. So we supplied enough for the farmers to leave water to their fields, then the building hay sheds, building general purpose houses for farmers, and all that lasted through the mid-60s. Then the transport was liberalised, i.e. the monopoly of the Ulster Transport Authority ended, I think, due to free trade pressure, and we started running some lorries. We were used with the lorries drawing meal from Belfast. Now we could do licensed public transport. So we built our way through that. And as an example of part of what your theme might be today is, why not? Is there a better way? And that would have been always something that I would have had my eyes and ears open for. Why is it like this way? Can it not be done better? Or is there an opportunity in it for me? And listening one day, sitting in the Newry Custom Post, this guy was having a debate with the custom man because he wasn't getting his load of chilled horse meat cleared on a Thursday to be put on a boat in green ore to be shipped to Paris for Sunday night. And I thought, and there was 40 men, other hauliers sitting there, but I thought, maybe, could I do a better job than that? I believe I could. And I went to the manufacturer, the producer or processor in Kilkenny, and I said, can I draw your meat to France, your horse meat to France? Because at that time, pre the EU, in the late 60s, there was a potential opportunity to be in the EU, and thus meat and other products would flow freely. So it was about, call it foresight, call it opportunism, call it assuming what the future would be a little. So I went to him and he said, have you ever driven in France? No. Have you ever, have you any international insurance? No. Have you got your lorry internationally insured? No. Have you, a TIR Carney? No. Have you got UK permits to travel? No. And I said, let me write those down.
Yeah, it's a
So
bit negative, wasn't
quite a list. So he took them down and he says, John, I'll probably not see you again. I said, I'll see you in a month. So the biggest challenge I had in getting all of those documentations together was convincing the establishment in London or in Newcastle upon Tyne that I was British, not Irish, or for
it?
that stereotype to get British road permits. So that was quite a convincing. Go to Newcastle and with this accent I have, I'm trying to tell them that you're British. It's not quite, doesn't go down 100%. So you wear whatever hat you have to get to move forward. So got my license system went back, and we were given. He was concerned then that maybe we wouldn't make a good job. I said, I'll draw the first 1 load a week for 4 weeks. And if anything goes wrong, you don't have to pay me any money for the 4 loads. I was confident that I would make it happen. So we done that and worked at that, and then we worked at that until 1975. And between, I don't think I need to go into the madness in Northern Ireland, and we were unlucky to have premises burned, and we were banned from crossing the border for whatever reason at one stage. And that all. Then there was a 1974 where meat was not leaving this island because of the high inflationary price of oil, and we were left with trucks drawing fish and drawing flowers and drawing miscellaneous stuff, and it was a crazy time. So I quit transport in 75 owing a lot of money. So my dark times were coming through, facing me in the eye, and I was dismissed as a director in the company by the other family members because I had run the business into too much debt. And after a few days begging and pleading, I was allowed to stay, not a director, but to give my best shot to clear my debts on the company business, because I felt I was the best person to do it. Yeah, I had run up the debts, took the chance, and went through turbulent times in the 70s. But anyway, come roll the clock through, those were tough times because at one stage I hadn't even a bank account. It wouldn't even clear a cheque for £80 for me. So, you don't know, you don't have to be much deeper in the ashes than that. So, I worked my way through that. I always believed that was all I had, was belief and determination. And I knew that if I could keep going, I would find a way. So 82, I stood in San Francisco, the first holiday I had in 5 years or 6 years. And I said, I'm standing here, I'm at 40 years of age. I'm worth nothing. I'm worth the same as I was born today, just about equal, about nothing. But I have a lot of determination. I have a lot of experience, and I have a lot of energy. And if God gives me time, I'll make it. And so I selling groceries in our shop, which was the only thing we left was the original retail business, and doing my best to keep petrol in the tanks and groceries in the shelves. That was tough, but I just said, I've been successful today. Let's not worry about tomorrow. And I still have got the keys in my pocket, therefore I'm winning. So it's a bit of a very short term, but it taught me a bit about living where I am, not with the future. And you have to do both sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I was drawing bread, didn't notice what I was doing, but I was going to Monaghan, that's in the Republic of Ireland, across the border here, 12 miles from where I live. And I was throwing down bread at 7 o'clock on a Monday morning for our customers in the shop, because there was no bread in Northern Ireland on a Monday at all. And I was supplying our customers with bread on a Monday, because people want fresh bread on a Monday just as they want on Thursday. So we started off, and another relative retail, he asked me for some as well, so I delivered him a few trays on a Monday morning myself. And I said, there could be a business here. Call it opportunism, or call it foresight, or call it risk-taking. I don't care what word you put on it. But I said, there may be other shops out there. So I went out, and I was only out about a month with a van or two. Then we got 2 and 3 and 4. Finished up with 70 vans at the peak, delivering bread to 2,000 retailers. Built a bakery and built a dairy, and ran that business for 40 years. So that was challenging and exciting to build, but it was about maximising the opportunity. So we were delivering from Greystones, that'll be south of Dublin, Kildare, right round to to all the shops in Northern Ireland. So that lasted well, and we were well received because one, we were offering an advantage in that 6 days a week bread. Two, we were offering it somewhat cheaper than our competitors, and three, we gave sale return. So we had an improved service, and we had I would say, more than necessary perhaps, or a premium service, in that if some customer in Belik or in Ballycastle was runner of bread, we would deliver it to them. And by coincidence, we were delivering to the medium-sized, smaller shops, that is from the, say, Nisa down to the small corner store. We didn't do the multiples. They weren't here then. They were afraid to open shops in the 60s, in the 80s and 90s, because they wouldn't have lasted a week here, because they'd have been a pure target for a bomb. So we had kind of a run at it for a long time, and then the recession came in 2007. That Celtic Tigers is called in Ireland, and the retailers, the multiple stores had opened up at this stage, because we had now the peace agreement, and from Asda to Tesco to Sainsbury were coming in, and at Marks and Spencer, they wanted part of the footfall. So in order to get them in after the recession, they offered bread and milk as loss leaders. And here we were selling to our retailers who wanted to have the same margins they had, but be able to match the multiples. Quite an impossibility. So that ran through 13, 14, 15, wasn't as profitable as before. But the one good thing about that was the profitability, and the activity we had gone on was now managed by a lot of other people in the company, and I wasn't operational. It wouldn't be my top skill in managing and operational. I would get it going, but follow through would be my weakest point. So we got good people to manage it, and the bakery and the dairy, and we produced great product, produced excellent product, and there was a lot of woe from some of our suppliers that we had to quit doing it because it wasn't profitable. But in the meantime, I was working the 100-hour week, as anybody building a business usually finds themselves doing, and family, kids, Patrick and Joe and Helen were growing up, and so it was challenging from a whole lot of fronts, because there was never enough hours in the day. But I then needed some heart treatment, and got a check 92, 93. Then by 94, there's only one option: go for a heart bypass. I didn't have any of the heart attacks looking up. I just had the curtailment of feeling chest pains, and wasn't willing to take tablets adequate to suppress them, because that's not maybe a good idea, because it can come back at you. So I went, and didn't qualify for heart bypass because it wasn't bad enough. I think you have to be landed in hospital with a heart attack. So I paid for it and got that bypass done. And it was a good, best lesson I had in delegation in 94, because I knew, well, will I be back? Will I be fit to be back? Will I be able to work? Will I be there at all? Didn't know. So the business was more important than my future. So therefore I delegated. How could this business go? Surprise, surprise, 3 months later, this business was going well, and I was just edging my way back in again. So I let the people who were doing it well do it well. And in the meantime, while I was lying in the hospital, I was looking at a picture on the wall, and there's a photograph of a 2-litre jar being used for watering the flowers outside the City Hall in Belfast to sell the flowers. And I said, how would I do that better? And when we were coming out of the process of a heart bypass, there's very little works well apart from the mind. So I was saying, how would I do it? If I was that woman, how would I compete with that woman? So I thought I'd put a table, and this 2-litre jar for the water. My goodness, we're the first people to bring 2-litre jars into Northern Ireland, and now the place is swamping with them. Those things need to be recycled. So I put in the next 8 years parallel developing a recycling of 2-litre jars for food use at the rate of up to 60% recycled bottles whenever sustainability wasn't much talked about or thought about. So, but it got to the stage where I had done a pilot, great vendors for collecting the bottles and all that, and then I could see at parallel with that, I was also learning more about my health because I love life. I didn't want to live the mandatory 7 or 10 years that a bypass gives you. I thought, can I do better? So I learned about food and I began to become, I don't like the word obsessed, but probably my dear wife who passed away last year
I would say obsessed, yeah.
Yeah.
would say obsessed. So the doctor gave me good advice. He says, a lot of it's in your hands. He says, but people in their 40s develop a habit and they are partial of habits, so you'll do what you've done before, not this one. So I didn't, and I thought, what is the best method of protecting? So the more I read, the more I learned, and it's like anything else. I become keenly interested in learning about health. So I'm not qualified in any field, but I'm keenly interested in understanding what the experts think. So I'm lucky, I'm blessed with a pretty good memory and I can retain and hold what I learn. And therefore I was able to spot like the wild animals looking for food. When you are eager, looking, searching, watching, learning, your mind's in that mindset. And you will, whatever you see, you will analyze, scrutinize, and forensically say, is there something in this? So having fed our calves on our farm in the 40s, in the late 40s and early 50s on what's called milled linseed coming in from Canada because during the war, all the war effort, all the animals reared in Ireland were needed to feed the war effort, and therefore they wanted to protect the wee calves, small calves transitioning from milk onto solid food. If they get any stomach upset, they will die quite quickly. And our calves, my mother would always have said that linseed was the best thing ever because we never lost a calf for 10 years on the farm.
Wow.
And of course, the old man who worked in our area, my dad would have sent him in to work on the farm, and he ate linseed when he came into the farm because my mother with 10 kids, he wasn't going to go in look for breakfast, so he would eat linseed and we'd copy him. So I had eaten linseed, my two brothers and I, and we learned to suck eggs. That's a bit of a revolting thing to think about, but sucking a raw egg is what we learned to do as well. Anyway, didn't do any harm. So roll the clock on to the 2002. I was at an exhibition in Brussels, and this guy was offering a milled flaxseed, and I took a sample taste and walked along, come back up, and I said, "Is that flaxseed the same as linseed?" Well, he says, yes, the same. Only in Canada we use linseed for feeding the animals, and here we use flaxseed. So I said, oh, I think that flaxseed's good stuff. I ate that before. I couldn't believe it, so I explained how I did. And eventually I took home a dozen packs, and I used it myself and began to realize that works. And eventually I decided, look, this flaxseed will work. And that's the start of the present health food business.
Wow. That's amazing, isn't it?
That's the short version, Steve.
Yeah, I'm going to say, you knew that story, Patrick, didn't you? Yeah, you've heard that before.
I didn't know all of it. There's bits added in there that I haven't heard before, but
I think,
yeah.
I mean, look, you obviously have quite an entrepreneurial drive right the way through you, John, to say that you see an opportunity and you don't just go, could that work? You go, let's have a go, which I think that could be today's first lesson to anybody that's listening, because I think nothing's easy. Nothing comes on a plate. It might seem so from the outside when you see a lot of, we talked earlier about social media influencers and things like that. But most of it is seeing there's a gap in the market and then having the strength of character to actually then see it through and prove. I love that. Why not? I think that's a little mantra that you should keep.
The modern name would be opportunism, or you can call it foresight. But it doesn't. I don't have to put names on myself. Others can do that.
Yeah. I like why not. I'm sticking with that. And so, in terms of from you, John, then taking the flaxseed to improve your health and to rebuild you post the surgery and whatever, how did you end up suddenly with this vast range that you have now of health foods at Linwoods, sorry, what was that journey?
It was running parallel with her bakery and dairy business, and it was probably not treated with utter excitement by maybe other people in the company. But then I was devoting my energy to it, and I got that conviction, belief that people need to. I think it was some. I don't know what nutritionist said it. I'm very good at plagiarizing or borrowing words here and there. But some nutritionist said, "Look, it doesn't matter what you eat. If you add some good stuff, you're less likely to eat the bad stuff." So by adding some flaxseed to your breakfast, it worked. But the key point was we got a lot of what I call referrals or even testimonials from people in the neighbourhood, in the pharmacy stores, and that by saying, yeah, whole flaxseed, sure. It gave me regularity, but now I discover my knee isn't as sore, or my hair looks better, or my skin looks better, or actually I have more energy. And I took all of those on board, and I was giving away free flax, not necessarily buying testimonials, but people who are willing enough to be honest enough to tell me back. And that was then we went out and we discovered, oh, there is a great knowledge among the health food store staff who'd say, yeah, milled flaxseed is much better than whole flaxseed, therefore what you're doing, you're on the right track. So I was getting reassurances along the way, and all of that positive feed said, well, look, I can't hold the world in my hands, but I can give it a shot at going as far as we can. So we're on that journey today, going forward. And obviously the key point was we decided we must produce a consistent product. If we're selling healthy food, it better always be healthy, i.e. safe. And also we must ensure that we are as automated as we can to bring value to the consumer. And that's, to this day, we're still, my son Joe, involved in innovation. He has turned the factory upside down with modern production equipment to make it more streamlined so that we can double our production and not have to increase the more and more hands as we go forward.
Yeah.
Not that we're against well-trained staff, but the one thing you want to present challenging work to people, not routine work. And we're doing our best to take the routineness out of production. So Patrick, on the other hand, has fitted in exceptionally well to run the whole marketing, the sales, the whole scene, personnel, and the team and office administration. And he's done it better than I thought he would in the first 2 years. So that's where that is, and I'm very happy to do my best to shut my mouth or keep it closed until I'm asked for a opinion. And one more habit of a lifetime is hard to snuff out,
Absolutely. So Patrick, obviously you are John's son, just for those who don't know, who may be just listening in rather than seeing you. You were made MD a couple of years ago, but you've been in the business longer than that, haven't you? It'd be quite interesting to know your journey and what you've seen from watching Dad grow this with his madcap ideas from time to time that obviously have come into rather a fantastic product range when people do look up the website and see what you guys now offer.
Oh yeah. So I suppose my own journey coming into the business as a kid, firstly gone out on the bread vans, delivering the bread and milk as a helper, then showing up on the summer holidays and being asked, "Oh, go and collect all the rubbish." There was a lot of rubbish blew out of the bakery and around the site first, and then also the local fields. So going around with bin bags, collecting all this rubbish a number of summers, and one of the early lessons Dad always talked about was you have to start at the bottom and work your way up through the business. So myself and Joe and Alan, we both definitely started at the bottom, but after the third year I was kind of thinking, Dad, when am I going to move up away from this collecting rubbish and kind of start to move up as a 14 or 15-year-old. So after done those kind of part-time jobs, and then once I've done my A-levels, completed those, and decided I'm gonna take a year out before I go back to university and try and learn as much as I can about the business from Dad while he's still in good health. And he was probably mid 60s then. Thankfully, he's still here now, and I'm still learning from him. But post that, I went in and started working in the factory. So we built a factory or rented a factory and put our production unit in there. And I was employee number two in that health foods business. So myself and essentially the production manager. And it grew from there to now we've got 40 people working on in the production end of the business. And so worked in production, I worked into supervising and managing that site. I worked the fleet of vehicles and vans. We had 70 vehicles on the road, with 100 guys driving those vans. I worked along with Alan, who was managing them, and it was his deputy, and I learned a lot from Alan, who was able to balance the holiday requests, the sicknesses, the absences of 100 people,
The bit that
and
people
keep
never
them all
see, do they? They never see that
and
from the outside.
keep them all happy. And
Yeah.
Alan had every relief driver. He knew what runs he covered and could swap around different runs if somebody phoned in sick. So I learned a lot about managing people and how to kind of you as a 22, 23 year old, I'm not going to be able to tell somebody who's worked for dad for 40 years, oh, you have to do this, you have to ask. So I learned a lot in that respect, and then I suppose developed from there into a more management role, and worked in sales for a while. Then I went back and I done a degree in nutrition and food, and that's where I got more interested then in innovation and NPD and the creation of our new products and development. So that all led then into the MD role as managing director, and that was a very gradual transition. Yes, on the 1st of May 2022, I assumed that title, but it was a very gradual, and it's probably that transition is still going on even today, 2 years later or 2.5 years later, where responsibility is still ebbing between us.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming more responsibility, and dad's maybe stepping back a little bit more, but yeah, so that's been my journey. So I've worked in all areas of the business. I've a good experience. I never worked outside the business, which maybe with hindsight looking back would have been good, but you can't go back. So
I don't know
here we are.
exactly. You're right. You can't go back, and there's nothing like understanding every role that a business does when you're leading it and when
Yeah,
you're managing it, because you can sort of look them in the eye and go, "I've done that job. I know what it
yeah,
entails." You can't pull the wool over my eyes.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you talked a bit there about innovation, and you've got two pillars from what I could read from the business, which is innovation and stability, sustainability.
yeah.
How are you two managing to keep that through everything now? As the business grows, there's a lot of heads in there, there's lots of product range in there, I assume there's lots of distribution options. How are you keeping control of that as leaders of the business?
Yeah, so innovation is a key pillar of our business, where you've seen from Dad's backstory this constant, I suppose, transition or evolution within the business. We're not still a little country store, and we moved on to the next thing and then moved on to the next thing, tried the bread and milk. It worked for 40 years until it didn't work. But luckily, Dad had the foresight to start a health food business, and there will be a time probably when this health food business will no longer work as it is today. It needs to evolve between now and then. So we have to continue to innovate and change our product offering and add more value to people. And then the sustainability is, I think it's imperative that we all are focused on sustainability. And yes, I suppose we want to try and minimize our impact. We're not perfect by any stretch. We have a lot of work to do in that respect, but it's a work in progress, and we're doing what we can to try and reduce our impact on the planet. Whether that's reducing our carbon footprint, using recyclable packaging. We've planted a woodland on the site here of 11 acres, and it will sequester carbon, but it will also act as an amenity for the local community. It will promote biodiversity, all those different things, and it's so multifaceted, the whole area of sustainability. So we can play our little part in it.
Yeah. And do you think that is allowing you to stand out in the market? Because it is a very, very, obviously very competitive market with everybody from small one-person operators through to the big multinationals that are involved
Yeah.
that could potentially be on your competition list when you're trying to get a listing in a big distribution supermarket or something like that. So
Yeah.
are they liking that story? Is that story resonating well with them?
Yeah, I suppose there's doing being more sustainable because it's the right thing to do, and then there's being more sustainable because Mr. Tesco or some of the multiples are coming on saying, "Can you show me this policy or that policy or the other policy?" So it's twofold. I think firstly you have to do it because it's the right thing to do, but once the customers start demanding it of customer and companies, that's
Yeah.
when we really see, I suppose, a step change. And you asked the question there about keeping on track. I seen a quote about strategy, and strategy is deciding. It's as much deciding what not to do as deciding what to do. And so I think there's a big piece of work in remaining focused on what we're trying to achieve and not getting distracted by the other shiny thing over there, and remaining focused on trying to do the best at what we're doing.
Yeah. It's a very good point, isn't it? Because there are, with, I suppose, John, go back to your earlier days, and even when I was at school and even university, we didn't really have computers and access to this whole world of information. It's what we sort of knew, and maybe that helped us keep a bit more focused in those days. There is what I would call a magpie effect for lots of people now, where there's shiny stuff everywhere. You can go off, and sometimes you need to realize, and that's, I suppose, why when you've got the personal story, John, of the health scare that says, right, I'm going to do good for myself and then let others benefit from it. That allows a focus to stay within the business. And obviously, with it being family run, I assume everyone's signed up to that particular driver.
Yeah, I'd find that I am probably old enough, or I am old enough to know what rationing was like after the war, and I can remember that there was no, everything was, it was totally sustainable because we were eating organic vegetables out of the garden. We were eating organic potatoes. We had organic milk from the cows because they were getting oats grown on organic land, and therefore everything we touched was organic. And I can remember the rich tea biscuits arriving in the shop after the war, the cornflakes, all of those. I could see the advent of ultra processed food developing rapidly and taking over the world, not just in Western world, but in the other parts of the world. Everything that happened after the war wasn't good. The idea that we would have such a variety of food over these years, the idea that we would have fertilizer to grow any quantity of crop we wanted, the idea of these incredibly magic plastic, which was going to solve everything in the world,
Mm.
and that's a lot more things. And the key point is that we sometimes didn't think enough what we were, the good and the bad. Just today, as we can look at Facebook, good and bad. So there's no, the world is not a pure place. There's nothing pure about it that's good and bad. And the other thing I would say is, just as a matter of interest for anybody listening, it would be the idea of us calling ourselves a plant food company back in the early 2000s was almost like burning your bridges.
Mm.
Because I was at one show in Dublin in 2006, and one of my few customers who was from Donegal came along, and I was standing at the show selling my smaller range of Linwoods products, and he says, "Oh, John the Baptist is here today." And I says, "How do I get that fancy name?" And he says, "Well, sure, you're preaching a gospel that no one's listening to, but they will." And I can remember him saying that to me, and I was convinced that this is what people should be doing. And I knew that if I kept at it long enough and talked to enough people, that they would realise there's gold in them there hills. In other words, there's something good in this. And as I'm now 82, people look. I was stopped on the on the sixth floor in the hotel I was in, and this guy stopped and he says, "Could you tell me how you look so well?" You know, and I said, "Well, you don't know my age, therefore how do you know I look well?" Well, he says, he couldn't answer that one. So I told him my age, and he was astonished. So he wanted to know, So so I said, I suppose, first of all, I maintain positiveness. I maintain good eating and good exercise will make you feel good. I have a purpose in my life, which I enjoy going to work every day at my speed, not as I was before I
Yeah.
handed over to Patrick. I can now have my half-hour retirement in the morning and then go to work. So also I like people, I like living, and why shouldn't I be healthy if I tick a lot of those boxes?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Two things there for me. One is the power of the mind. You've decided you're going to enjoy it. And so by that, you do, don't you? You create your own luck. But I also love, back to your story of the organic greeting, there are no new ideas. That's when you've been around the block a few times, you realise there are not. And it's a lot of it is about understanding where the opportunities lie. And if there's a good story attached to them and also a good outcome for it, then guess what? People will get behind it. Because I think people are desperate for good news out there. They're desperate for positivity. And I think if you can send that out, then you'll start to do very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in terms of now, Johnny, is it you or is it the kids that are driving the innovation? Because I'm assuming you can't stand still as a business. There is always a need to widen and deepen the product range for something in this sector. So who's behind that innovation nowadays?
Right.
Well, both of us, I suppose, and the rest of our NPD team, Steve, is the real answer. While the values of the company, and our purpose is about enhancing people's health and well-being, myself and Dad maybe have slightly different ideas on what the innovation might look like and how we do that and how we enhance. So, of course, there's a bit of kind of differences of opinion and differences of viewpoint, but that's totally natural and healthy. And I suppose it's the best idea that wins out. It's not that it's my idea, I'm going to force it through, or Dad is the best debater, so his idea wins. It's which idea is the strongest, and and look, ultimately the consumer will decide which is the best idea.
Is it going to be health is that going to be the thread that runs throughout all innovation then?
Yeah. Our purpose is to enhance people's health and well-being, helping them feel great every day through positive and sustainable nutrition. So we won't do anything that doesn't fit that purpose and fit within that mission.
Yeah.
Though that's very wide. So that gives us lots of scope to do many different things.
Yeah. We won't sell. My kids were all a 4-year-old at one stage, and I have the habit of saying I wouldn't sell it if I wouldn't give it to my 4-year-old.
Yeah. I think that's vital. Where I've been really looking to it, lots of different brands, and what you see sometimes is they start with a purpose and a vision like that, and then they, back to the magpie effect, they get excited with the market and they stretch the brand too far, and it actually then unravels because people forget why they first chose it. And I think if you've got that at the heart of every decision you're making, yes, you can stretch, right? But as long as it comes back to that core principle, like that John's saying now, to the fact that if he'd feed it to his 4-year-old kids, then it's good enough to sell for the business and it's got health benefit. It's crucial. And I think so many businesses forget that.
The other thing is that we know that we will be meat eaters in the Western world for a long time to come. But there's a difference between being a meat eater and being a flexitarian. And I believe that more and more, especially I have a great belief and hope for the young people. They are quick learners and they will realise that the world is important, their future is important, their children are important, and I think more, and it's much easier to change a habit pre-30 than it is post-40, and therefore people would feel they're inadequately nourished if they don't eat meat or some form of animal protein every day. And it's not quite so, but that is almost, it's beyond it's beyond, it's probably an emotional belief as much as a fact. And therefore, younger people are much, like for instance, you're talking about the age generation and the difference. Whenever this overnight oats was launched, I was, dare I use it, call it the skeptic. That wasn't my idea. That came from Patrick and his colleagues as the product it is today. And I'm wholeheartedly with what they were doing, but I was skeptical because, I thought the oats market was saturated. And so, there's no one has the, well, I call it the monopoly on opportunity. You don't see everything and you don't know everything. So a very fundamental lesson to me to realize that, other people have good ideas, and just because I might have age and experience doesn't give me a superiority in that field.
I think Patrick, there's a compliment in there.
Yeah, yeah. There's a backhanded compliment in there somewhere,
No.
Steve. No, and I suppose it's a good point that you touch on, and back to the innovation piece. Like, I can see products for my demographic that people need, and go back to this thing about opportunity and spotting the opportunity, but also is there a gap in the market, but also is there a market in the gap? So, Dad would never have seen the this opportunity for overnight oats because it's not, people of his age probably aren't eating overnight oats, whereas I'm seeing people in the office eating it. I was doing it myself, making it up with all the different ingredients, and thought to myself there has to be an easier way of doing this. And if we
Yeah.
put all the ingredients together and you just add milk, then that's much quicker and much more convenient. And can we do it healthy, make it tasty, and make it convenient? And thankfully, a lot of the customers out there agree with that synopsis that we have achieved that. So, and it comes from, these little things can come from a little nugget somewhere of people. Everybody I spoke to, oh yeah, there's 10 people in my office are making overnight oats and bringing it in every morning. And the more people you spoke to, you went, okay, there's definitely a demand out there for something like this. And all of the overnight oat recipes, and we done research, we found, oh, actually, it's the second most researched thing on Google in terms of food.
Oh.
So there's a lot of people looking to make overnight oats and consuming overnight oats, but yet there's no product for them. So once we kind of discovered that, and our hardest battle was convincing Dad to allow us to do that. So once we
It's
get over
quite
that,
Not
it's
not
quite a
allowed,
good
Patrick.
check.
I would contradict you
Yeah.
there. I didn't stop you, but I would use the
yeah,
word.
it took a bit of convincing
You
me.
were
Yeah,
eager to try to have a unanimous decision on it as opposed to having a laggard.
No.
yeah,
But
took a bit of convincing, but we got there.
but it gives you a really good. It makes sure that you produce something that's robust and well thought
Yeah,
through, doesn't it? If you think you've got to get it over that
absolutely.
hurdle in your head, and that'll
Yeah,
probably always be a check and balance to go, would that get past? And that's
yeah,
great. You probably improve the product by 20-30% by that work that you did to make it brilliant.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
A very
so
good example, just to add another example. Nuts have many, many benefits. If, the falsehood about nuts is that they're fattening. Not really. But anyway, whole nuts are an occasional treat. So I had a group of people in the office here. We were looking at a new contract for bread for one of the institutions. And there was 20 people in the office, and just having a chat over tea, I said, "How many people use oats or use Linwood's products?" So almost everybody did, because they were buying Linwood's bread and Linwood's milk. But anyway, I said, "How many people eat nuts every day?" Oh, there was nobody ate them every day. There were, I said, "How many eat nuts once or twice a week?" There were about 6 out of the 20. And then I said, how do you, oh, I eat them on a Friday night or Saturday night watching a video or watching a film or something, and maybe with a beer, and I'd eat a few nuts and so forth. I said, if I said to you that there are hundreds of thousands of people eating nuts for breakfast, would you believe that? How? So I lifted my pack, set it up, and it was the flaxseed, almonds, Brazil nuts, walnuts, milled for convenience. So in many instances, There's a bit more to our overnight oats than convenience, but often if you make food palatable and
Yeah.
convenient and could
Yeah.
be eaten quickly, and that product I'm speaking of, that product which there's an example here. That product there is one of our top selling products. Just as an example, that putting in nuts like into the product. Who would ever think that you could create a product that people would say, well, they began to learn about nuts, so it's an education thing, you know. So those are some of the, are we lucky or smart or just resilient to find what's the next thing to do, or forensic? I don't care what word people use, it doesn't really matter to me. We are set on developing increased plant-based convenience food that will be good, wholesome, and sustainable. And
Yeah.
it's not moon rocket stuff. It's simple stuff, and but it has to meet our standards, meet our values, and meet our expectations in taste before we put it out there.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you've got a brilliant handle on your consumer and what they want and where they are in life. And to Patrick's point of that, he's wearing that. Well, I'll include myself in Patrick's bracket. Just wearing that, we need everything to be easy. And whereas there's a generation coming through who'll actually probably work a little bit harder to be healthy than us. Whereas we're like, no, too busy. Won't have, like, I said to Patrick when I first met him, my wife Jules makes overnight oats herself with oats and apple, and I watch her every night and just go, not being awful, I just can't be bothered. Whereas I have bought your product, I'm like, have some of mine, Jules. This is really nice and quick. I've done it. But it's interesting.
Make that again.
I was saying that because she makes every night, whereas I'm like, I've been trying your products, going, look, I've just put my milk in the fridge, bosh. And now I'm being all healthy and self-righteous, saying, look, I'm as healthy as you now. And she's like just looking at me as if she's given up. But it's about understanding what the market wants. Because like you say, any of your products, I could go to a health food show and buy all the bits myself and try and emulate your products. But I might do it one weekend when I'm feeling healthy, then never touch it again for 5 years. So it's about that. If you can wrap it up and it has all that health benefit with it, then it's truly going to make a change to people's lives. And so
ultimately, you're trying to add value to people's lives, whether it's you're enhancing their health or you're making it convenient. Like people were you were milling your own flaxseed in a coffee grinder, and then said, well, actually, if I milled it for people, that would be easier. And that was probably the genesis of the health food business. I was going to say in a nutshell, but that would be very cheesy. But that was the genesis of the health food business. And then similarly with overnight oats, well, is there an easier way to do this?
Yeah.
And going and developing that and creating that. So yeah, we're always looking at that and looking forward into the future. We see all of these conditions that people are living with. Heart condition is the biggest, and cardiac disease the biggest cause of premature death, obesity, all of these different illnesses and chronic diseases. Well, is there a way that we can assist that with health foods and nutrition, as opposed to maybe pharmaceuticals, which have a role to play, but maybe they're not all of the answer?
No.
So again, it's back to, can we add value in that space? So that's probably part of our innovation and our future, that we want to see how can we assist people and help people in that area.
Sounds exciting times ahead, doesn't it? Because as you say, the market's going to get bigger and bigger. As I suppose a lot of it as education improves, which is one of the benefits of the access people have. And I think that's probably why the younger generation and us are much more educated, because they can get access to understand and to learn.
We consider we're getting good at educating people and highlighting the benefits of good food. It costs a lot of. I don't think our marketing people would be pleased if I said costs. The investment is quite substantial to do that education and that communication. Yeah.
But if you can associate, John, your brand with that message, that's going to stand you in good stead, because when you bring something out, there will be an automatic response that's good. That's been thought through. That's for me. So investment's the right word.
At the start of the discussion about young people want to start businesses, and that want has to be at a higher level than just want or even hope. It has to be, I would say, it maybe we not mean humanity by equating us to other animals, but I want to use the example of the nature of the Labrador dog. He is conventional, she is conventional, and they will be quite near their master at all times. Thus, they feel their first duty is to toe the line, and that's where a lot of people live. On the other hand, there's another breed of dog called a terrier, and he is eternally curious. He has big ideas about himself. He believes that the wolfhound would be no problem to him if he got in his way, and he is endless. He has endless energy, and I would always say to people, if conventional security and a comfortable life is what you want, don't start your own business. If you are dissatisfied with the routineness of life and you want to get into that uncertainty and feel at ease with uncertainty and feel energized by uncertainty, certainly go into start your own business and you will get plenty of that. And that is my advice. But be aware that and by the way, this fear that exists on the journey of life is something that we should embrace from early on, because none of us will pass a normal lifetime and not have setbacks. And for that reason, we need to ensure that our mindset is willing to believe that is a setback. It's not a failure. I don't like the word failure, and I don't like the word impossible, because both those words are much overused as lame excuses for where they are. And I would maintain that the business of setbacks is a learning curve, and often whenever the setback comes, like the tunnels that I used to drive in the late 60s and early 70s in Italy, they weren't built for the heavy traffic. They weren't built for the width of the trucks that were running. And you were in this tunnel on a fast motorway. You come round the bend on a motorway, you were into the tunnel, and you were in the tunnel before you knew it. Now, there's not much point in parking up and getting out of the lorry and screaming, "This is not safe, I have to get out of here." The only safe way is hold your head, keep going in the dark with the headlights on, and there will be an end in that tunnel. And in life, when we have a sudden loss of a family member, we lose our job, we lose our home, we lose our partner through breakup of marriage, we lose our status or maybe whatever. Those are setbacks in life, and those are for getting up and going again. And not to say that you need to become good at them, but the one thing is, if you're prepared in advance to say, yeah, I don't know what the answer to this is, but I will find a way. And I think that to me is, if I was giving no other lesson to other people, doesn't matter what comes your way, you will find a way through to the light at the end of the tunnel. End of the tunnel.
Brilliant. I think that's fantastic, because I think it is, and it's what builds you, isn't it? Because you learn from that, and you next time you got some yardstick to which by to think about how you would deal with it again, but also then to pass it on. So is that, Patrick, I'm sure John has given you a lot of advice over the years. Is there anything that stands out? Because it's normally a question that we give everybody about what advice would you give to your younger self? But in this situation, I can say, what advice, John, have you ever given to Patrick?
Yeah.
Well, giving advice and listening to it are two different things. So I'll let Patrick answer.
Go on, Patrick, you can tell us, yeah.
Yeah, you probably covered a couple of the key takeouts that I have learned over the last number of years is learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So push outside what is your normal comfort zone is important. That's where growth happens, and that's where you develop. If you're in your comfort zone the whole time, you're not going to grow as a person, which will inevitably lead that your business will be in the comfort zone. And the other one is, again, Dad has summed it up, is keep going, and don't give up. And yes, if you do have a setback, well, so be it. Or I know he doesn't like the word failure, but you either win or you learn. So
Yeah.
either it works, or if it doesn't work,
Yeah.
if an innovation doesn't work, well, what went wrong, and learn from that, and then use those learnings to be better the next time. So those are a couple of my key takeouts, learnings, and yeah, that knowledge that has been passed from one generation to
Brilliant.
the next.
You see, John, he has been listening. He has been listening.
Very good. Good.
Sometimes.
Good.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We've gone over time. I'll be in trouble again, but what the heck?
Yeah.
That was a fascinating story. It's just so many things in there for people to get out, to understand that there aren't shortcuts to this. It's about having a passion and a purpose and a belief that what you're doing is right, and then following it
Yeah.
and sticking to it, putting your shoulder to it, and then success will follow. So look, we wish Linwoods and both of you all the success in the future. We will watch, and I will keep having my overnight oats.
Yeah. Thanks very
Thank you
much,
very
Steve.
much.
Yeah.
Very happy to talk with you. Thank you very much for airing our attitudes towards life. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve.